Let me just start off right off the bat. No matter what you say, no matter what you do, it's never going to be the resurrection. Never. People want to know what happened to the resurrection. Why haven't you guys thrown it? And is it coming back? I've got some answers and more. Let's go ahead and get it started. What's popping in the streets, everybody? I believe, therefore I'm KingSylar. Hope you're doing all right today. It's been a hot minute since I've gotten up here and kind of shot a video with you guys. Been a little bit of an adjustment period for you, boy. Definitely haven't had a whole lot of time, honestly, working this crazy ass schedule that I got. Roughly kicking out close to like 60 hours a week. And your boy's just tired. Not to mention the numerous changes that I've been going through my life, and kind of feel as though there was a little bit of a mental block there that I didn't realize until I actually sat down and tried to write notes for this video, because it's one that I've been sitting on for about 6 months. And I know a lot of people have asked questions about the resurrection and where it's been exactly, but I'm here to answer a few questions. From mainly some of it from my personal opinion, and a good majority of it as far as the shared sentiments that myself and its creator Al Metro, aka Pun, aka Fury, aka Raven, aka Little Street Bully, the creator, we share the same sentiments about a lot of the resurrection in itself. So let's go ahead and get started. But before we do, if you'll do me a favor and go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like, hit the noti bell, share any of the content. Let me know what your thoughts are. You subscribe, you'll get every time that I drop some content, you'll know it'll send you a notification on YouTube. I also recommend that you create your own channel. Start your own content. Let me know what your thoughts are. We could use all the opinions that we could possibly get in the community so that we can have much more of a collective conversation. So follow me on all social media platforms. It's right there for you. So let's go ahead and get started. So you see what it is. I've stated it before. No matter what you say or do, it will never be the res. Now that's a tough statement. It's a tough statement, and it kind of sounds very egotistical when you don't break it down or you don't really understand what I mean by that. And I think the big thing that people have to understand is that resurrection is not just a convention. It's not just an event. It's not just a gathering of people. It's also a representation of a time in Crump. That's the big component I think people don't remember. We can still be a culture, we can still be a community, but we also have to acknowledge the atmosphere, the time of where we were at when the resurrection was at its absolute peak. And so to answer all those questions as far as in regards to where did it go, why haven't you guys done it, I'm gonna answer here. So just to start with like a few of the top points I would say as the reason why the resurrection hasn't come back. So first and foremost, probably the most impactful, the world changed. Obviously, it feels like it was last year, but obviously it was like it's over 3 years ago now, the pandemic. The pandemic, I think, was probably one of the biggest hurdles that I think we had to tackle as a dance community because one, it forced everybody to sit down. We weren't allowed to see each other. The community took a hit because obviously as a very energetic and passionate and aggressive and very it's just obviously we know freestyle culture and especially Crump, like we pull energy from each other through the hype, through the energy, just as dancers. Like having that connection of being close to someone and being around somebody at a session is vital. There's nothing wrong with laughing and dancing in your own house and stuff like that, but we obviously know that the energy cannot be reciprocated by yourself or even kind of seeing it on social media platforms or live streams and stuff like that. And we were deprived of that feeling, that emotion for close to a year. Some people even longer because they didn't come outside, they had family and stuff like that, and they weren't able to move around. And during that time period, a lot of people lost their motivation. Some people were hanging on by a thread. Some people were full-fledged like part-timers. And what I mean by that is that they only kind of came around when they could because life demanded them to be in other places and they weren't always allowed to do that. So that was a very big component as to why it stopped, because you know, there's no greater challenge than when a leader has to ask himself, where do I go from here when you can't lead anymore? And during that time period, we weren't. We were just simply trying to keep our own heads above water, and we couldn't create opportunities for dancers because we were on a lockdown. We couldn't be around each other. It was a freaking pandemic. So that was a tough one. And a lot of people just simply left because they realized that they didn't want it like that. They faced a lot of hurdles, and ultimately that was the end of it. So it really did cut the movement in half, if we're being honest. So that was the first hurdle that we were faced with, probably the biggest one. The second, the cost of living went up. Everything in the world got more expensive, and dancers started demanding payments that they wouldn't get paid in their own states. Obviously, as time went on, we all got older, and our time was much more valuable. I think probably about 70% of the crump community in America is over the age of 30. I would at least assume that. And obviously, we don't have the time that we used to where it was just simply, work a casual 9 to 5, pay your bills and stuff like that, and they go to a crump event. Other people they wanted other things out of life. And then when they started pursuing careers and they needed to be more responsible for families and other responsibilities and stuff like that, it costs more. The cost of living went up, so therefore you had to work more, you had to get better jobs. Some people had to get multiple jobs, and they didn't have that freedom that they used to. I'm old enough to remember that 10 to 12 years ago, a 700 square foot house was $800, $900. And that's within Texas, one of the lower costing states in the country. And I know that's unheard of in other regions and stuff like that, but for us, that was the norm. So obviously in the last 10 years, it's doubled. The norm is 15 off rip. So obviously people just don't have the time for it anymore. And therefore, when you squeeze the economy, you squeeze everybody. So therefore, you have less opportunity, your demand gets higher, and therefore the value of the dollar gets lower. So we just didn't have the capabilities to pay people out for that. That's all there is to it. The third thing, the crump world grew, but the southern region didn't. Now, this was kind of like one of the more personal components when it came to the movement, is that it was becoming more popularized or more common that people actually wanted to come out to party and have a good time versus less than actually be a part or be associated with the southern community. I used to get messages from crumpers and dancers in general that I hadn't heard from all year. But the moment that we dropped a flyer about the Ressurection, all of a sudden people were asking me about boarding and housing and flights and stuff, asking to stay at my house and stuff like that. And it's like, I don't rock with you guys any other day of the year. But the moment that we dropped the flyer about the Ressurection, now you're reaching out to me for this event. And it was kind of mind blowing to kind of see hey, I ain't heard from you guys all year. It's like, where were you during that time period when we're, just chilling? Now all of a sudden it's just kind of like, you want to hit me up. So it was just, it kind of took me back, because people didn't want to, kick it or anything like that. And everybody knows, like, the Ressurection, again, as I said before, it's not just a crump event. I can't confidently say that we were the first event to have 3 days, but I know for a fact that we were the first crump convention to have 3 days that were actually surrounding other things outside of crump. As in, we were having barbecues, we had workshops, people would kick it on Thursdays and stuff like that. We would go do something outside of crump so that we wouldn't get burned out. And then Friday, Thursday was a kickback, do nothing associated with crump day. Friday was the pre-day, pre-battles, tournaments, things of that nature, maybe some workshops. Saturday were the main event battles, finals of the tournaments. And then Sundays were barbecues, maybe some labs, maybe some extra battles, and people kind of went their own way, and they even, went home and stuff like that. So there was a lot that went into that. And we specifically planned it like that because we wanted people to have an experience. Like, we wanted them to get comfortable with the Southern hospitality outside of just simply coming here to drink. And that was one of the big components, is that people didn't really bond with the Southern community. It was more so based around, what can I get from the Southern region that would put me in a position to where it would either benefit me financially, and that was pretty much it. Financially, or it would keep me in popular standing as far as like getting my name out there. And I understand obviously people wanted little homies and stuff like that. But again, as time went on and people realized that they couldn't have those opportunities anymore, we watched those people separate themselves, and kind of like the relationships kind of got strained and they went their own way. And even some of those fams and crews and stuff like that that made connections out here in the southern region, they diluted and fell apart because we weren't providing opportunities for them to come out here solely so they could profit from it. It's a two-way street. You know, if you help me, I help you. And I understand it may not necessarily always be like you're signing me up for a battle, but it is just like, let's just stay in communication. Like, let's just stay good friends. And I noticed that across the board. If we weren't booking people to come out for, at that time, the biggest crump event in the country, they didn't want anything to do with us. And if I'm just being quite frank, it was kind of heartbreaking, to see that type of behavior from people, because I saw it from a lot of people that I wouldn't expect. I would say probably out of the 100% of the people that we brought out to the southern region, I would say only about maybe 25 to 30% of the people at this active right now still actually have a good bond and relationship with the southern region and actually try and associate with us. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. And we brought out a lot of people, and whether the people want to admit it or not, we, no pun intended, but we did resurrect a lot of people's careers. We did put people in positions to where they're at right now, whether they want to admit it or not. It is what it is. I'm not saying that we were the only reason, but I can definitely confidently say, okay, people would not be able to get to step 5, step 6, whatever the case may be, unless we got them off of step 1 and put them on step 3. It just was what it was. But we had that belief that, hey, we don't want to just simply book one group of people. We want a variety of people. We want the southern region to be a melting pot where it's a safe haven to where, okay, you guys can't come over here and throw religion around and stuff like that. It's fine. We respect your religion, but we also want you to respect other people's beliefs as well. We want people to come out here for the culture of Crump first, because that is what brought us together. Without the culture, the community doesn't exist. And without the community, the culture doesn't propel forward. It's a two-way street. And so that was probably one of the most biggest factors as to why the Ressurection didn't really come back, because it was a really big burden as far as in terms of trying to maintain those relationships that weren't genuine. They were only based off of what can you do for me? And we know Crump is a very much of a what have you done for me lately type of sport. So that was that one. And then the fourth biggest one, which was probably the biggest hurdle, it was the structure and how the event was being run. Now, that's not to say that the event was being run incorrectly in no way, shape, form, or fashion, because we take pride in that more than anything else. I don't care what anybody says. There's not a single person that we've ever had step forward and say that they were not handled in a professional, respectful manner and they weren't paid. We never stole from anybody. We never manipulated anybody. We pride ourselves on that. Real Southern event throwers, we pride ourselves on not strong-arming, manipulating, influencing, lying, whatever the case may be. We threw an event because we brought people out because we wanted to throw a good event. But it was costly. And overall, how I kind of just looked at it for the last one, it's not worth it. In this day and age, it's not worth it. I think the biggest component that would help the next generation is helping them understanding that pre-selective battles are not the end-all be-all, and they're not going to be the sole stepping tool for them to get to the next level. Pre-selected battles only go so far within our community. They don't do anything for the next generation. And I think that we've kind of slowly realized that when we look at Crump, the art form is very, very subjective. And we've also watched groups, regions, people, individuals, leaders, and stuff like that sway the opinions of the masses solely because they believe they're right without evidence or anything like that. Compared to the other Main Street style genres of dances in the community, their mentality is not, let me step on a stage, or really if we're starting from the bottom, is that it's not, let me get a flyer, let me get booked, let me get boarding, let me get taken everywhere, my food paid for, step on a stage, battle for a total of maybe 6 to 7 minutes, and then walk off, and then that's the extent of like my hard work within the community. and I'm only preparing for one person in one way for the next 6 to 7 months. That's not beneficial to you, because all the other genres of dance, they're preparing to dance for probably close to maybe about an hour, maybe a little bit older, maybe 2 hours if you include cypher time and sessions and call outs, things of that nature, on top of the tournament. That's the mentality that I think this generation needs more than anything else, because if we're being quite honest, having pre-selected battles up until this point has given people a diva-ish mentality. Everybody in this day and age wants to be booked. And I will wholeheartedly, openly say that majority of them don't. They don't. But we have to look at it as far as in terms of the res. The Ressurection back then was the people's event. The event was created so that we would give hardworking people who don't have the platform, the influence, or the spotlight to step on a big stage and show that they work just as hard as some of these other top tiers. And that's what they were doing. That was the goal. That is what we set out to do. And we helped people make their names and their paths and their careers up until this point. And that was the sole goal and focus. In this day and age of Crump, before we even talk about a flyer, you have to be given a flight. And I'm not saying that, okay, you shouldn't do that, because if you want somebody bad enough, you should help out with something. There's no question about that. But it just shouldn't always be just simply because you want it, you should automatically get it. Sometimes you have to go out there and make your own name. But in this climate, in this atmosphere today, you could be battling Boo Boo the Food, and no matter what, okay, well, I need a flight to I don't know, Arizona or whatever the case may be, or somewhere closer. Let's try Oklahoma. Oh, you gotta fly me out, bro. It's 4 hours away. Just drive. I'll pay for your gas. Oh, and I need a house and an apartment or all this, like, or boarding or whatever the case may be. It's a lot. It's very demanding. So if you can imagine doing that for maybe 20 other people spread out on top of paying for the venue, the DJ, vendors, MC, judges, whatever the case may be, you can see how exhausting that can be. People just got to the point now to where they think the money is more important than the movement. And I just personally don't agree with that. I don't. Even me being 15 years in, I don't agree with that. But that seems to be where the mindset is with everybody when it comes to the movement. And like I said, it's just not worth it. Teaching the next generation that the only way that you can make a name, or showing them, because that is a form of teaching as well, if you don't say anything, you don't educate them otherwise, but showing them that the only way that you can make a name is by stepping on the stage and battling for 6 minutes is not worth it. It's not. And I don't think it's a good lesson that we need to be teaching the next generation. I advocate more for tournaments, because when you win tournaments, you get a prize. You have a resume that you can take to whatever businesses that you want to, and you have the reward. And then there's no question, there's judges. Nobody's going to tell you that you didn't win. No, I won. I won 5 years in a row. Here you go. I can take that somewhere. These pre-selected battles, they don't amount to much anymore, because it's all subjective and people are going to lie regardless. So when we look at it full scope, it's just not worth it. And it's not going anywhere. Pre-selected battles are fun, don't get me wrong. They're the backbone, and the street battles, call-outs, they're the backbone of our culture. It's the ones. Shooting the one-on-one, shooting the fade and stuff like that, that's still the culture at the end of the day. I'm not knocking it. But what I am saying, full scope, when you look at it as a whole, it's not as important as it used to be. It's just more expensive. That is why I said, no matter what you say or what you do, it'll never be the rest. Different time, different era, different respect for the culture. We set out to create an event that was for the love, and now it's about the money. It'll never be the rest. There it is.